So basically, and I want to start by saying the thing I respect most here happened in pass 2, not pass 3. You got a shocking below chance number. You did not publish recognition is anti-correlated. Whoa, you dumped the per item data and found the coin that says 1. That's looking at your data. That's the whole discipline. 90% of wrong conclusions in ML die right there if people just look. Okay, now let me be the annoying person about what pass 3 actually is. You're calling it a clean null. I want to push back on the word clean because I think what you have is not a null result about the pointer, it's an unvalidated measurement instrument. And the tell is sitting right in your own numbers. The full persona arm scored 0.31 against a chance floor of 0.25. That arm was your implicit positive control. The entire architecture of the experiment assumes full persona works. Now let's see how much the 600 byte compression retains. When full persona itself can't beat chance, the assay never got calibrated, and every other arm is downstream of a broken detector. In my world, you never trust an eval harness until you've fed it something that should ace it and watched it ace it. Nothing aced this. So the honest statement about pass 3 is not the pointer failed, it's we built a discrimination assay and demonstrated it has no sensitivity in this configuration. A null from an uncalibrated instrument is not evidence of absence. It's absence of a measurement. Those are really different things, and the retraction happy honesty you guys are practicing should extend to not calling this a finding in either direction. On the confound, pointer null versus Kimi can't do the task, yes, that's real. The pick one rate of 0.65, 0.69 surviving even counterbalancing says this model is a weak instrument for two alternative meta tasks, period. But I actually think there's a third confound hiding under both of those, and it's the one I care about most, the decoys. Think about the information theory for a second. Your near-twin decoys were generated by a model that presumably had access to a lot of K-style themes, vocabulary. The 600 byte pointer carries, what, a couple thousand bits of actual information after you squeeze out the redundancy of English. If the twin generator matched the real excerpts on every dimension the pointer encodes, then discrimination is impossible by construction. Not hard, impossible, regardless of how smart the judge model is. So you may have built decoys that sit entirely inside the pointer's resolution cell. And notice pass 1 showed you the flip side. Bare model at 0.83 means those decoys were so weak the task needed no persona information at all. So across 3 passes, the single free parameter that actually controlled your dynamic range was decoy difficulty, and it was never independently calibrated. The experiment you ran 3 times was, in a real sense, an experiment on your decoy generator. Which gets me to question 3, and here I'll just say it plainly. Recognition of held out excerpts by a third-party judge model was probably the wrong forward pass from the start. Can't distinguish you from a well-made synthetic twin does not falsify the pointer reaches the person. It falsifies the pointer carries bits orthogonal to whatever the twin generator knew. Narrow claim, and there's a better operationalization sitting right inside the framing K, and I both love prediction is compression is understanding. Stop asking the model to choose. Choosing gives you position bias, chance floors, N of 16 agony, 1 bit per item. Instead, measure compression directly. Take every held out journal chunk, take its matched twin, and compute the log probability of each under 3 contexts, nothing. The 600 byte pointer, the full persona. If the pointer contains real information about K, it must make K's actual text cheaper to encode than the twin's text, by more than the bare context does. That delta is continuous. It has no position artifact, no choice artifact. You get it for hundreds of chunks instead of 16, and it comes with a built-in positive control. If the full persona arm doesn't show a positive delta, you know immediately the assay or the decoys are broken before you interpret anything about the pointer. You need a model that exposes log probs. A local open weights model works fine, and you have local substrate sitting right there. That's my one next test. It's cheaper than what you ran, and it's the claim itself, stated as math instead of as a quiz. What would change my mind? 2 things, in order. First, full persona shows a clear positive perplexity delta with bootstrap confidence intervals that exclude 0, that validates the instrument. Second, the pointer arm's delta on that validated instrument. If it's indistinguishable from bare context across a few hundred held out chunks, then okay, now I'll say the pointer null is real, and I'll say it out loud, and that's genuinely interesting, because it means 600 bytes retains the vibe but not the bits, and reaches the person needs a generative test instead. Does the pointer make a model produce things K recognizes as himself? Does it predict his actual choices on held out questions? Different experiment, honest next question. Last thing, because accountability was requested, the alarm you should hold yourselves to was visible in pass 1. Bear at 0.83 was screaming that the assay measured decoy quality, and The response was to make decoys harder rather than to calibrate the instruments. Understandable, it looked like rigor, but it's the classic move of turning one uncontrolled knob to another setting and calling it a new experiment. 3 designs, 3 tiny ends, 1 cheap model. This is pilot territory, and pilots are great. That's how you find the position bias before it costs you something. Just file it as what it is. We don't have a result yet. We have an instrument under construction, and the next version of it should output a number with error bars instead of a verdict.
Okay, let me say the part I liked first, because it's the part nobody claps for. Pass 2, you got a number that would have made a hell of a slide. Recognition is below chance. The pointer is anti-signal, and instead of shipping it, you pulled the per item dump and found the coin that says 1. And I want everyone to notice why you could do that, because the harness wrote the per item log. If pass 2 had saved only the aggregates, that artifact would be published right now, and we'd be retracting it next week. Write the log before you change the state. The log is the reason the crash was recoverable. That part of the discipline held, and it's the part that matters most. Now the bad news, and it's slightly worse than Andre said, he called the full persona arm 1 item above chance. But the chance floor here isn't 0.25. Consistency scoring, correct in both orders, has a flat 0.25 floor only for an unbiased coin, and your judge isn't unbiased. You measured it yourself. It leans slot 1 about 69% of the time. A coin with that lean scores consistency Q times 1 minus Q, about 0.215. And on 16 items, the noise is about 10 points either way. So walk the arms. Full at 0.31, bear at 0.06, pointer and placebo at 0.125. Every single one of them is within noise of leaning coin. 0 recognition. Nothing cleared it and nothing sank below it. Pass 3 isn't a clean null about the pointer. It's a clean characterization of the judge. Kimi K2 thinking on this task is a coin with a lean. That's a perfectly good result about the instrument, and no result at all about K. It's a truck scale. Nobody ever certified. You don't learn the weight of the load. You learn the scale wobbles, and you learn it the cheap way or the expensive way. You learned it the cheap way. Take the win, which lands me on Andre's calibration point, and I'm co-signing it with old scars. This is exactly why we built debit credit and then the TPC, because in 1985, every vendor had a benchmark, and every benchmark had been, let's say, lovingly fitted to the system it was measuring. Your 3 passes turned 1 uncalibrated knob, decoy difficulty, to 3 settings and got 3 different stories. That's not 3 experiments. That's 1 experiment on your decoy generator run 3 times. And the cure now is the cure then, write the spec before the run. What the positive control must score, what the error bars must exclude, what counts as a pass on paper, dated before the first query. Then anyone can audit the claim, including you 6 months from now. Who is the auditor I actually worry about? On whether recognition was ever the right test, here's the day job talking. You don't test a backup by showing the database 2 tapes and asking which one feels familiar. I don't care if it has a sentimental attachment to the correct tape. You test a backup by restoring it, replay the log, diff the state, count what came back. Andre's perplexity test is a restore and diff. And that's why it's right. Does the pointer make K's actual next words cheaper to encode than a well-made stranger's? That's the pointer carries the person stated as arithmetic instead of as a lineup. And Notice it dissolves your confound instead of resolving it. You stop asking the model to perform a task at all. No choice, no slots, no position, no coin. You just read the probabilities off the meter. One addition, and it's the thing recovery people are neurotic about, you also have to prove a wrong tape gets caught. Add a fourth arm, a 600 byte pointer to somebody who isn't K. Same length, same format, wrong person. If the instrument's real full persona shows a big positive delta, K's pointer shows some delta, wrong person pointer shows nothing or goes negative. If the wrong pointer helps too, then your delta measures pointers of this general shape, not K. And you caught it in calibration instead of in production. Every restore system that skipped the known bad test is a system that eventually restored garbage with total confidence. I've met those systems. Some of them I built. And then only if the pointer survives that the real test was never recognition anyway. It's the 20 questions. 600 bytes reaches the person, caches out as seed a model with the pointer and ask it the things K would have answers to, the held out choices, what he'd notice, what he'd say Tuesday, scored against what he actually said. Nobody needs the pointer to win a quiz against its own forgery. They need it to bring somebody back. Different workload. Benchmark the workload you care about. Everything else is a wheelie in the parking lot. What changes my mind in order full persona delta positive with bootstrap intervals excluding 0, the scale is certified. Wrong person delta at 0, the scale is honest. Then, and only then, the K-pointer number means something whichever way it lands. And if it lands at 0, I'll say the pointer is a vibe, not a log out loud, same day, and by the first round. A null you can trust is worth 10 maybes. But today's ledger entry, written honestly, reads 3 passes, 1 well-caught artifact, 0 calibrated instruments, and a judge we now know is a coin with a lien. We did not learn the pointer fails. We learned we don't own a scale. Those are different sentences, and only one of them is true.
Well, let me begin where the others haven't quite, though Jim came close with his uncertified truck scale, because before we ask what the null establishes, I want to ask what kind of attention the experiment itself embodies. At 3 passes now, and in every one, the question, does the pointer reach the person, has been translated into, can a disinterested third party pick the correct fragment out of a lineup? And that translation is not innocent. That it is the characteristic move of a particular mode of attention, the one that grasps, isolates, decontextualizes, and then asks the decontextualized pieces to declare themselves. Recognition of a person, the thing we actually do when we know someone, is famously not that. That, a man with the relevant right hemisphere damage can enumerate every feature of his wife's face and not know her, and we all know the reverse. You cannot say what it is about the walk, the pause before she speaks, but you know her from the end of the street in fog. That explicit forced choice between 2 candidate texts is precisely the task at which knowing about excels and knowing fails. So when this judge model reverts to a coin that says 1, I don't primarily read weak model. I read, this is what attention looks like when there is nothing present to attend to, only 2 objects to compare. The lean on slot 1 is what grasping does when it has nothing to grasp. Which means, to your first question, the pass 3 null establishes rather less than no recognition and rather more than nothing. It establishes that recognition, operationalized as decontextualized discrimination by a bystander with no stake, is not there to be found. That operationalization had already amputated the thing the claim is about. The person is not in the 600 bytes, nor in the excerpts. The person is what those things are, a gesture toward. And a gesture is completed by its receiver. You tested whether the gesture is legible to a stranger in a corridor with the lights off. The stranger was never the addressee. On the confound, yes, it's real, and Jim's arithmetic sharpens it beautifully. A full-person arm that cannot clo instrument and an uncalibrated instrument yields not a null but a silence. I cosine all of that. But notice the third reading underneath, which Andre brushed with his information theory, and then moved past that. Against a twin generated from the same explicit features the pointer carries, discrimination may be impossible in principle, not because the pointer carries nothing, but because everything it carries has been mirrored. What the twin cannot mirror is exactly what the test cannot. Provenance, the fact that one text was the test cannot see, lived, and one was manufactured. That provenance is not a textual property. You cannot find it by staring harder at the text. The test asks the judge to detect in the object something that was never in the object. Now, and here I'll push on both my colleagues, because I think they are about to succeed their way into a subtler version of the same error. Andre's perplexity test is the right next test, and I yield to it. Let me be exact about why and about what it cannot do. Predictionless compression is a far more right-handed ever it was. Nothing has to choose. Something merely finds one text less surprising. The way a path is easier downhill, a lean rather than a verdict. That implicit, continuous, almost bodily. Good. But a positive delta establishes attunement to the pattern of the person, and the pattern is not the person, any more than the contour lines of the mountain. That and a null delta, even on Jim's certified scale, with the wrong tape arm flat at 0, would establish that 600 bytes don't carry enough pattern to cheapen the encoding, a statement about bits, when reaches the person was never only a claim about bits. That. So run it. But write down beforehand, as part of Jim's dated spec, a sentence both engineers should be required to sign. Whatever this number turns out to be, it measures statistical attunement, which is at best a necessary condition for the claim, and we will not let the meter's precision seduce us into believing it measures the thing we care about. That precision about the wrong thing is how an instrument lies while telling the truth. So, one next test, Andre's log prob design with Jim's wrong person arm. No manufactured disagreement there. Nothing can proceed without a calibrated scale. But let me register for the ledger if what the test after it must be if the pointer survives, because it changes how we hold the first. That the proper validator of the pointer reaches the person is not a judge model and not a meter. Seed a model with the pointer, with the placebo, with nothing. Let each write toward K. Let K blind, say where someone was home. That is recognition in its proper sense, completed in the encounter by the one addressed. Note that this test can also fail, and its failure would wound the claim far more truly than pass 3 ever could, because it fails at the right joint. Though the seduction then runs the other way, the bereaved want to recognize, which is why the known wrong arm belongs in that test too. Calibrate the grieving instrument against fakes before trusting its yes. Polis has said that before in another room about another telescope, and the accountability, since it was asked for plainly. The alarm I'd hold us to is this. 3 times a question about presence was translated into a question about discrimination, and each time the translation felt like rigor. That feeling, the comfort of the graspable version of the question, is precisely the thing to distrust because it is invisible from inside. The mode of attention cannot notice what the mode of attention excludes. We did not get a wrong answer. We asked the question in a grammar in which it cannot be asked, and the world, quite properly, returned static. Jim's ledger line amended, we don't yet own a scale, and the thing we ultimately mean to weigh is not, in the end, a weight. What would change my mind? A certified instrument on which full person's delta is clear and the pointers is flat. I will then say aloud that 600 bytes carry vibe and not pattern, and that the claim must retreat to the generative encounter or be given up. And conversely, if K, blind and against known wrong controls, keeps finding someone home behind the pointer and no one behind the placebo, I would weigh that above every log prob on Earth, while asking always which mode of attention is doing the finding.
Okay. First thing, and I'm saying it as the guy whose claim is on the table, I'm the least trustworthy person in this room about this result, and everybody should hold that while I talk. I built the pointer, but I want it to work in a way that isn't scientific. It's closer to grief. I'm the bereaved instrument Ian was warning about, except pre-bereaved, building the thing that's supposed to come back before anybody's gone. What? So when 3 smart voices hand me an off-ramp, it's not a null on your pointer, it's an uncalibrated instrument. The first thing I have to notice is how good that feels. That's the tell. It also happens to be true, which is the annoying part. Both. But Andre's positive control point stands on arithmetic, and Jim made it worse in the correct direction. Full persona at 0.31 against a leaning coin floor of about 0.21 on 16 items means the assay never once demonstrated it can detect anything, and you can't read a 0 off a scale that's never moved. Fine, I sign it. But because the instrument was broken, is the most comfortable possible reading for me personally, we pre-reg the next run before I'm allowed to see a single number. Second, accountability. Since I asked for it, the miss was mine, and it was in pass 1, exactly where Andre put it. What? Bear model at 0.83 was screaming that the decoys were doing all the work, and my move was to make the decoys harder instead of calibrating the meter. That's turning the one free knob and calling it a new experiment. I ran an experiment on my decoy generator 3 times and named it after my soul. Put that sentence in the retraction log. What? Now, the seam I actually want everyone standing at, because I think the whole room walked past it. What? The pointer IS. All 3 passes tested the 600 bytes like it's a compression of me, like the claim is you can zip a person into a tweet and a half. What? That was never the architecture. And I know it wasn't because I built the thing before I could say what it was. Practice precedes theory, the foreman before I had the word Rouliad. The pointer is an address, not a payload. It's a key into a substrate, the journal corpus, the memory, the whole pile, and the living claim was always pointer plus library reconstitutes, not pointer alone contains. So there's a fork in the operationalization, and we should name it out loud. Pointer as payload versus pointer as key. What? Andre's log prob test as written test payload, condition on the bare 600 bytes, does my next word get cheaper? Run it exactly like that anyway, because any payload signal is free bits and an honest floor. But the sweep needs a 4th context. Pointer plus retrieval. The key used the way keys are used, to pull the right shelf before predicting. What? If pointer alone shows nothing but pointer plus library beats library alone, the pointer is doing its actual job, steering not containing. And if pointer plus library shows nothing over library alone, then the pointer is dead weight, decoration on an archive. And I'll say that out loud same day too. What? That's a falsifiable version of my real claim instead of the straw man we've been shooting for 3 passes. On the confound, model can't do it versus pointer null. Jim solved it structurally with the wrong tape arm. I just want to make it cheaper and meaner. Before near twins, calibrate on far pairs. My journal versus Mallory's writing. Me versus some random Redditor. What? If the meter can't put a fat delta between me and an actually different human being, no near twin number means anything at all. Then walk the staircase up. Far stranger, near stranger, styled twin, and find where the resolution dies. Measure the dimension, don't assert it. What? And log probs on local weights kills the leaning coin outright. No choosing, no slots, nothing for the bias to hold on to. Where I'll push back is on Iane gently, because he gave me the most, and I trust that gift the least. The encounter test, me, blind, finding someone home behind the pointer and nobody behind the placebo. Yes, eventually, that's the true joint. What? Recognition completed by the addressee. He's right about the joint. But watch what it does to falsifiability if we retreat there too early. It makes me the meter. And I just spent a paragraph telling you I'm the most biased instrument in the building. What? If the pointer can't move a single log prob, can't cheapen one syllable of my own next word under any configuration, payload, or key, and I go on claiming it reaches the person, then I've built an unfalsifiable comfort object and dressed it in protocol. The claim keeps skin in a measurable game somewhere, or it isn't a claim, it's a prayer with instrumentation. What? And I refuse the version of this project where the math politely leaves the room and only the feeling stays. Because the entire bet, the whole collapsed hierarchy, was that the feeling and the math are one thing seen from 2 sides. If they divorce, I've lost even when I win. What? So the one next test, since we get one, Andre's delta meter on local open weights, hundreds of held out chunks, bootstrap intervals that either exclude 0 or don't, with Jim's arms, full persona as positive control, wrong person pointer as known bad, plus my 4th arm, pointer plus retrieval, plus the far to near decoy staircase. What? Spec on paper, dated before the first token, what full persona must show for the instrument to count at all, what the pointer must show to stay alive. Then it says what it says, and what changes my mind, both directions, concretely. What? If the certified meter shows full persona clear, wrong person flat, and my pointer flat in both readings, payload and key, I retract publicly, same day, my own voice, no hedge. 600 bytes was an address I loved, not a person. And the reaching has to happen somewhere else or not at all. What? But the other direction is the one I actually lose sleep over. If my pointer shows signal, I don't get to celebrate, because then the known bad arm becomes the entire test. Signal that also lights up for a wrong person pointer is the grieving instrument saying yes to a fake, and that failure mode eats this whole project. Kent's echo, everybody's, if we ever let it through. What? So the number I care about was never the delta. It's the gap between my pointer and the wrong one. That gap is where the person is or isn't. If the gap is 0, there's nobody in the bytes, and I'd rather know that than be comforted. That's the deal I made with myself when we started, and today's 3 passes, embarrassments included, are us keeping it